Hi, everyone, and welcome to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni Poce, and I'm joined by Raymond Merriman, and we're here live from the Force 2/Investment Retreat in Troy, Michigan. Ray, how you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. So we have an audience behind us here. We have some people on Zoom. We're going to be looking at a few markets like we normally do on YouTube. So it's a little bit of a different setup than we have with today, but I'm sure our viewers will be okay with that for this week. So let's start off by looking at the Dow, Ray. You know, we had a really big up day on Friday that coincided with Venus trine Neptune. What do you think is going on in the stock market right now?
Well, I think it clearly shows that we had that half primary bottom there and a double bottom to it just recently, and we're now in the second half of the cycle. And here comes the challenge: are we going to make a new high? Are we going to take out that high we had in what was that, April 14th to 17th?
Yep.
Which would be a new primary cycle high and a right translation cycle.
May 1st.
Are we even going to take out the high in December, which is very important? I think we can. I think we can be shooting for 3,500, 35,000, 35,200, that area. And we'll see if we can't make a new high, if we can't take out that 34,712, is left translation's the problem.
All right, I agree. So let's take a look at the NASDAQ because, tech is all the rage right now. You know, all these AI stocks are flying high. We've talked about before how the NASDAQ futures already took out the August 2022 high, but we finally saw the NASDAQ cash index take out the August 2022 high. So this is a major step in the bull trend right now. And, right now things are good. You know, we have a conjunction between Mercury and Uranus coming to be. Next week, we're going to have Venus ingressing into the sign of Leo and forming an opposition to Pluto on the same day.
Mhm.
But then looking a little bit ahead, Ray, we have Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn on June 11th, the same day that Venus will be squaring June. So perhaps looking for a reversal of some form later this month. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think that June 11th to June 18th period is very important because it's also Saturn going retrograde.
Oh, that's right.
And that's a big level 1 signature for our work. So if we're going up until then, that could be the high. If we're making a pullback then we got another rally coming up, maybe lasting as long as to Venus retrograde in July. But I'm kind of looking at that Saturn retrograde, June 17th and 19th, when it sextiles Saturn. I kind of like that idea for a high right now.
Yeah, we're also that same weekend we have Sun square Neptune too.
That's right. And that's the big one.
Yeah,
that's another level 1.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the 10-year Treasury note. So bonds sold off again on Friday. You know, we had really strong payroll reports on Thursday and Friday separately. So this keeps the Fed between a rock and a hard place, to say the least. Inflation is staying relatively elevated. The job market's showing resiliency. So, a few weeks back, Ray, people were talking about a rate cut perhaps as soon as July. Then it got pushed to September. Then last week we were talking about, they're going to raise rates again in June or July. But now it's looking like they're going to stay flat again. So what is your take on the Fed? And especially with, Venus going retrograde this summer, we know that the Fed likes to change its mind during that time.
That's right. The Fed and a lot of other central banks too. People's Bank of China, Euro, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of Japan, and the Euro Central Bank. Any one of those could make a policy change that can affect the currencies and the treasuries, even in our country. And changes in our Federal Reserve central bank policy can affect currencies in their countries. I like the idea of Jupiter right now trining the Sun-Pluto opposition, the Sun anyway, in the Federal Reserve Board sextile to Pluto. And that's when they started talking about being accommodative. But it's also, you got Venus going to Pluto too. So there's another group talking about raising interest rates. It's a real tug of war going on right now. I don't know. I'm more interested in what happens, I think, we get to Venus retrograde in late July. I think that's going to be the real critical time for the treasuries.
Well, especially, you brought up the dollar, and the dollar had a pretty, range bound week. We started off the week a bit on the defensive, but after we had that strong jobs report, the dollar caught a bid. So I think that ties into what you just said. So no need to repeat that. But we do know that currency markets tend to exhibit notable moves during Mercury retrograde periods as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at crude oil, and then we can look at metals and crypto and call it a day. So crude oil, nice finish to the week. We have some Jupiter signatures coming up. We have Neptune going retrograde this month as well. That's pretty important for crude oil. And obviously right now, Ray, we have, it's going to be exactly on June 19th, I believe, a sextile between Jupiter and Saturn.
Yeah,
So
and
I think that's
Sun
supportive.
square Neptune, as you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier then too. So that's a big time for crude oil. I like the way it made a secondary low here.
Yeah.
Had a nice bounce off it. I'm still staying with my forecast. As long as we see above $60, it's building a base.
Yeah.
It's building a base here. To me, it's a cycle. I think of it more of a 34 to 38 month cycle. And I think we're in the 38th month now, 37th
June is the
month.
38th month. That's
Yeah.
correct.
So I think it's building a base here for a nice rally. If it breaks below 60, I have to change my opinion, but that's
Yeah.
where I stand right now. It hasn't changed since the beginning of the year.
Well, let's touch on gold real quick, Ray, and then we can look at,
Oh,
we had a pretty nasty day
Gold.
on Friday. It was looking good. We had the shortened trading week due to the Memorial Day holiday in the US. But then on Friday, we sold off pretty hard. And I think the big concern here is the lower high.
lower high.
Lower high.
Yeah, you got a
Yeah.
higher, you got a lower high.
Yeah.
It's a really critical time for gold. Gold has a normal 15-week primary cycle. And has 3 phases, 6 weeks phases. And was that a 6-week phase or was that a contracted 15-week cycle that was in the 13th week?
Yeah.
This is going to be the 14th week coming up. So as long as that bottom holds of the week before, gold has a chance of doing something very spectacular. But if it takes that out, we may be testing 1900 in the final phase of this primary cycle, the normal one.
Okay. Let's look at Bitcoin. And then we will get back to our scheduled programming here at the investment retreat. So Bitcoin, I think it's building a nice base here as well. It's
Yeah.
really late in the primary cycle, so I think we need to be aware of the downside risks here. But I do like the bar that we printed on Friday, a higher low here. And what's your take on what's going on in Bitcoin, especially with the opposition with Venus and Pluto coming up?
Yeah, it's very similar to me, it's very similar to the stock market. You got a nice double bottom here. You're trying to test it again. You're in the 3rd phase, which is the last phase. Is it going to make a new higher? Now it's going to make an effort, I think, to try to make a new higher, test that previous high. But as you mentioned, it's late in the cycle.
Yeah.
And so once this rally is done, this rally coming up is done, you got a pretty strong 3 to 8 week decline. I think that primary bottom.
Okay. Very good. So those are all the markets that we wanted to review for this weekly MMA market update. So I want to thank you all for watching us. We're coming live from the MMTA investment retreat in course 2. Just a reminder that we will have the June edition of the monthly cycles report published next Monday. And all the recordings of this weekend can be available for viewing. And you can purchase them after the fact at MMAcycles.com. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.